So this video is going to explore some of the approaches to making energy supplies more sustainable. First thing we probably need to think about though is what a sustainable energy supply actually is. So we've got this definition here which quite neatly I think sums up the definition of a sustainable energy supply. It's a supply that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So it's about using energy in such a way that gives us what we want currently. It gives us reliable, stable sources of energy, but it doesn't have an impact on future generations either by using up resources too quickly or creating other problems for them. Links with this next question really about how does a sustainable energy supply aim to balance supply and demand. Ultimately, supply needs to meet demand. We need to make sure that we've got enough energy to meet the demand that we have, but we've got to do that in a way that doesn't damage the environment, maybe by contributing to climate change, or it doesn't damage the economy. And we need to be mindful of the fact that these energy supplies need to be affordable both to people and to governments as well. Now, there are a range of approaches that we can take to thinking about how we can make our energy supplies more sustainable. And we've kind of got these four options here that we're going to have a look through in a bit more detail. So homes and workplaces, transport, reducing energy demand, and using technology to improve the efficiency of fossil fuels. If we start with homes and workplaces, there are lots of things that we can do in buildings to try and reduce the amount of energy that we are consuming. So things like, if we start down here, efficient windows and doors, so having double glazing or even triple glazing fitted so it retains heat, maximising maybe the amount of natural light that's coming into a building. Insulation is really important, whether that's in the walls to try and keep heat in, or whether it's in the roof to try and stop some of the heat escaping from our buildings. Trying to use efficient lighting as well. Things like LED lights are becoming much more common in people's homes, and they use far less energy than traditional light bulbs or even energy saving light bulbs. LEDs are very, very efficient. You can also think about efficient appliances as well. So the appliances we use in our homes, like our cookers or our fridges or our washing machines, trying to make those as energy efficient as possible. Thinking about trying to incorporate renewable technology. So it's not uncommon to see people's homes with solar panels on the roof. Maybe a little bit more unusual to see a wind turbine in someone's back garden, but certainly in kind of industrial parks and business parks, that's not uncommon to see offices using that type of renewable energy. The other thing is maybe water saving measures as well. We sometimes overlook the fact that whenever we're using water, technically we're also using energy, because energy goes into treating that water and pumping it to our homes and things. So anything that we can do in the garden, maybe using water butts, or anything we can do in the house, like modifying some of our, again, appliances like toilets or showers, anything we can do to save water is also going to save energy. A good link that you can make here is back to the urban topic that we studied when we looked at BedZ. You remember those houses in London, hopefully, and all the things that they do there to make those houses energy efficient. If you click the link up in the corner now, that will take you to a video about BedZ, which you can watch to remind yourself of the specific things they do there, because that's a really, really good example of how we can design homes to be really energy efficient. Moving on to transport then, again there are a lot of links that we can make here to the work that we did in the urban topic, because we looked there at how we can maybe think about using transport sustainably within cities. So encouraging people to use public transport is really important, things like buses and trains and trams. If we can get more people onto those vehicles, that's much more efficient in terms of the energy we're using. Maybe encouraging people to cycle. The example of Boris bikes in London is a great example of that, or even encouraging employees to buy a bike through the cycle scheme, where they save money buying a bike on this government scheme. Encouraging people to buy hybrid or electric vehicles, they're certainly becoming slightly more common now. Promoting car sharing amongst employees, so people commuting to work, travelling together. And trying to reduce the amount of air travel as well, particularly short haul flights, so those flights maybe within a country or little short hop flights across Europe, they have a significant impact on our energy consumption. So trying to reduce the need for those is really important. One of the big ways in which we can make our energy supplies more sustainable is actually to reduce demand in the first place. So try and make it that actually we're using less energy. And obviously all of these things we've mentioned do contribute to that. But certainly giving people financial incentives, so paying them money to encourage them to change maybe from a petrol or diesel vehicle to an electric one. And the government in the UK already has a subsidy for this, so you can apply for a grant of a few £1,000s towards the cost of an electric vehicle. Maybe also giving grants or money incentives to homeowners to install double glazing or insulation in their loft, or more efficient boilers if they haven't done those things already, giving them some financial support to help them do that. Also encouraging people to use smart meters. You might have seen adverts on the TV about this. This makes people more aware of the energy they're using, but it also makes the people generating our electricity much more aware of how much is being used at different times, and therefore we can avoid generating more electricity than we need, which would otherwise go to waste. The final thing we've got then is about using technology to improve the efficiency of fossil fuels. As we've said all along, fossil fuels aren't going to go away. They're going to be part of our energy mix for many years to come. So we can think about designing cars or car engines to make them more energy efficient. Even trying to think about things like hybrid and electric vehicles as well certainly makes that fossil fuel use a little bit more efficient. Something else that's really important is what is called carbon capture and storage. This is where we take the carbon dioxide that comes out of a power station, we pump it somewhere, and then we store it underground, perhaps in an old oil or gas well underground, seal it away, so it's therefore not in the atmosphere and it's not contributing to climate change. This allows us to continue to use things like natural gas to generate electricity, but without the impact on our environment. And if we think back to that definition at the start, when we were talking about sustainable energy supplies, one of the things we want to do, we want to meet the demand, but we want to not have an impact on the environment. So something like carbon capture and storage, that's really important. Another growing option is the idea of combined heat and power, or what are called CHP plants. When we generate electricity, we also generate an enormous amount of heat. Most of our electricity is generated by heating water to create steam to turn a turbine to generate electricity. Now, when you heat that water up and you create that steam, that's great, you can create electricity, but you also end up with a lot of excess heat left over. You have all this kind of hot water and heat left over that is otherwise just kind of left to disperse out into the atmosphere. That's where we see those big cooling towers around power stations, just letting that heat escape away because we're not able to harness it. What combined heat and power plants do is actually take the heat that's used, or take the heat that's left over rather, and transfer that to people's homes. So this is done on a very small scale. So it might be that there's one CHP plant for a small area of a town, for example, a few houses. This is something that they tried at BedZ, but they realised actually the houses were too efficient. They needed to use so little energy that it wasn't effective to use one of these. But this is perhaps something that we'll see emerging in the future, not letting any of that energy go to waste. So I hope that's been useful to you in terms of just understanding those four main strands about homes and workplaces, transport, reducing energy demand, and using technology to improve the efficiency of fossil fuels. If we can do all of those things, then that's going to help us to achieve sustainable energy supplies.